Good evening. Welcome to the December 17th, 2018 Troy City Council meeting. We are pleased this evening to have Mayor Pro Tem Baker lead us with the invocation. So please stand for that and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I have a special introduction for our pledge tonight.
Father in heaven, we give you thanks for this day and thanks for the blessings you've given each and every one of us here inside City Hall and throughout Troy, as the entire city. We ask that you continue to bless us this evening with your wisdom and guidance and provide us with all the tools we need to lead this city with respect and dignity. Please be with those who are in need, who are perhaps suffering from colds, other infirmaries, are out in the city without guidance and without the needs they need. Please always be with every one of us, all of our service members abroad and at home, our police and fire department, all of their representatives, and know that they do such important work for us. Please be with the children of the city of Troy, who are our future and who we will look to lead us in the future. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Now I would ask Tiger Den Pack 1712 from Waddles Elementary School to come to the podium. They're going to lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance. So come on up, guys.
Nice line. Right here, Kevin.
Whoa, hi.
Right here, right here. All right, nice line. Nice line. Go over here, Corbin.
Are we ready?
Just about.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent job. Thank you. Tiger Den 1712 from Waddles Elementary School. Thank you.
Great job. They were enthusiastic. That's the most enthusiastic.
It is. Most vocal. Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. The roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Slater.
Here.
Councilmember Abraham.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Here.
Councilmember Henderson.
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Here.
Councilmember Pennington.
Here.
All present. First on the agenda are certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have three scheduled this evening. C1 is a legislative update presented by State Representative Martin Howlick. I do not see that he's here yet, so we will pass on this item in case he comes late. C2 is a proclamation to celebrate Meeting Coordinators, Inc. and owner Ann Brutel's 30th anniversary in Troy. So I would ask Ann to meet me at the podium. I'd like to present a proclamation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Would you come back here?
Sure.
And it's my privilege to represent the Troy City Council in the city to present a proclamation to celebrate Meeting Coordinators, Inc. 30 years in business, 1988 to 2018. You don't look like you've been in,
It was against the law. I started when I was 5.
I get it. I got it. Ann, I'd like to read this into the record. It's a great story and something that I know you're proud of.
I am.
Whereas Meeting Coordinators, Inc., better known as MCI, an overnight successful business, has reached an exciting milestone this year with 3 decades in Troy as Southeast Michigan's top association and meeting management company. And whereas when Ann Brutel established Meeting Coordinators, Inc. in 1988, she started with 1 client. Since then, MCI has expanded to over 10 employees with more than 20 clients, most of whom have been a partner for multiple years and continue to grow within the organization. And whereas since 1988, Meeting Coordinators, Inc. has been the leading association and meeting management firm in Southeast Michigan. Many of their current clients include Autoline, Detroit Society for Human Resource Management, Marketing and Sales Executives of Detroit, Michigan Council for the Society of Human Resource Management, Project Management Institute, GLC, SAE International, SAE Foundation. I'm just going to ask you to please keep the door open. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you. They'll be after us if we close the doors. So I'll continue with Wings and Wine Society and Women in Defense Michigan. Very impressive.
Thank you.
And whereas, being a premier full-service association management company that oversees the day-to-day activities of various volunteer-led associations, MCI also manages the conferences, meetings, and social planning for larger corporations and associations alike. Whether it is an event of 5 to 30,000 attendees, Meeting Coordinators, Inc. has successfully managed them all. And whereas through the years, Meeting Coordinators, Inc. has earned many awards for their exceptional service. In September of this year, they received the Michigan Society of Association Executives Silver Certificate of Excellence in the production of their new e-newsletter at their 17th annual Diamond Awards ceremony. On November 29th, Ann Brutel was honored with the Mich Business Extreme Entrepreneur Award. So, and whereas Meeting Coordinators, Inc. staff, with their varied experience, take pride in the relationships they have developed with all clients and are looking forward to welcoming more organizations to partner and expand with them in the future. So now, therefore, it be resolved that the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Troy hereby congratulate President Ann Brutel and Meeting Coordinators, Inc. on their 30th anniversary in business. And be it further resolved that the Mayor, City Council, and City Management join the citizens of this community in celebration of the 30th anniversary of Meeting Coordinators, Inc. and look forward to being more part of Troy in many years to come, creating more success stories for associations and corporations. Presented the 7th day of December 2018, signed by myself, all members of City Council, and congratulations. What a great, great accomplishment. Thank you. Okay, please.
I will say that Troy has just been phenomenally a terrific partner over the years for me. That living in Troy, you can imagine the differences that I've seen in 30 years, and I am so proud to be a part of this community. So I thank the council, the mayor, and certainly everyone, the businesses that have made this possible for us. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, C3, is a certificate of appreciation, and I would ask Fire Chief Dave Roberts to come forward to make a presentation to Martell Elementary School Principal Michelle Barsh and civilian citations to Martell staff Colette McClellan and Julie Richmond. And Chief Roberts is going to explain what a great thing that these people did for our community. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Chief Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council, this truly is a special night tonight. It's not often that we hand out awards like this, especially to civilians in our community. So I think the easiest thing would be for me to read, similar to what the mayor did, read the certificate of appreciation for the school, and then we also have certificates, civilian citations for Colette and for Julie. So the certificate of appreciation reads, presented to Martell Elementary School on September 21st, 2018, while classes were in session, staff members were alerted to a fire in the vestibule of Martell Elementary School. Upon the fire alarm sounding, staff worked quickly and efficiently to evacuate all of the students from the building. As a result, no injuries to students or staff were reported. Because of these actions, the Troy Fire Department is pleased to present the Certificate of Appreciation to Martell Elementary School, as well as the civilian citations to Julie and Colette. So, Michelle?
Okay. Once again, congratulations to Ann Brutel and to Michelle Barsh, Colette McClellan, and Julie Richmond. Thank you. There are no carryover items this evening. There are no public hearings. So we will move to public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. And I see that Avis Landmesser, Troy resident, has signed up to speak on J7. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Avis Landmesser. I live in 568 Ottawa. I do have a general comment on cluster housing. When I became aware of the issue coming before your body, I visited the YouTube filming of City Council meeting of 2018. At that meeting, Ms. Doreen Randall appeared before you, almost pleading with the developer and council to drop the last 5 homes from the proposal in an area designated EP that I assume means environmentally protected or protection. I'm not sure. I'm not that knowledgeable of it. But it would be saving a 60-year-old wildlife sanctuary that is home to nesting bald eagles. One can't help wondering if she received any answers to her legitimate questions and inquiries. After she pled her case, the mayor asked for council discussion on the issue. Only one council member chose to make a comment. The vote was 6-1 in support of the developer's requests, with only Mr. Hamilton voting no. And in his words, it was to save 2 little green spaces in Troy. I am not personally a big fan of the cluster development option. In many cases, I would gladly sacrifice a few more trees for fewer cluster homes. And contrary to some comments of city staff that cluster homes make better neighbors than traditional development, I'm reminded of what happens to lab mice when too many of them are squeezed into too little space. It is not pretty. Is it any wonder that citizens are becoming more and more alarmed and unhappy with the cluster home craze that we are presently experiencing in our city? Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up to speak on public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Next is an opportunity for council or city administration to respond to comments this evening. Seeing none, we will move on. There are no postponed items. Next is regular business. I-1, Board and Committee Appointments. I have 2 sets of appointments that I would like to bring forward this evening. First is I would like to appoint Daniel Hunter to the Local Development Finance Authority, which is better known as LDFA, as the Oakland County designee replacing Irene Spanos. So there is no term that expires. It is just an Oakland County designee.
Support.
Moved by the chair and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Baker that we appoint Daniel Hunter to the Local Development Finance Authority Committee as the Oakland County designee. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, I would like to appoint to the Planning Commission Sadiq Rahman for the term that expires 12/31/2019 to replace the vacancy created by Padma Kupa.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilman Pennington, that we appoint Sadiq Rahman to the Planning Commission for the term that expires 12/31/2019. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes, and thank you to Mr. Rahman for volunteering for that important committee. Next, I would like to appoint Michael Hudson and John Tagle to the Planning Commission for the terms that expire 12/31/2021. These are reappointments to the Planning Commission.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilwoman Hoderick, that we appoint Michael Hudson and John Tagle to the Planning Commission for the terms that expire 12/31/2021. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion passes, and thank you again to Mr. Hudson and Mr. Tagle for continuing to volunteer for the Planning Commission. There are no City Council appointments this evening, so we will move to I-2, which are board and committee nominations. There are no mayoral nominations this evening, so I would defer to Mayor Pro Tem Baker for City Council nominations.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple this evening. To the Employees Retirement System Board of Trustees, Retiree Healthcare Benefits Plan and Trust, I'd like to renominate Mark Callis for the term that expires 12/31/2021.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilman Hamilton that we nominate Mr. Callis. And what was that one again?
Employees Retirement System Board of Trustees,
Thank you.
Retiree Healthcare.
Thank you, as indicated. Any discussion on that nomination? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And for the Parks and Recreation Board, I'd like to nominate Gary Hoff as the Troy School Board rep for the term that expires July 31st, 2019.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker, excuse me, and supported by Councilwoman Hoderick, that we nominate Gary Hoff to the Parks and Recreation Board as the Troy School Board representative for the term that expires 7/31/2019. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And finally, also for the Parks and Recreation Board, I'd like to nominate Lori Huber, who's asked to be reappointed, for the term that expires September 30th, 2021.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilwoman Abraham that we appoint Lori Huber to the Parks and Recreation Board for the term that expires 9/30/2021. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. That concludes the nominations for this evening. Next, I-3, there is no request for closed session this evening. I-4, Chapter 74, which is Solicitations Ordinance Revisions, and I will defer. City Attorney Bloom, did you want me to defer to you, or do you want me to use Nicole?
I believe Mr. Miller and I are actually going to defer to Nicole McMillan, Sue Reister, and Lieutenant Jones.
Good
Good
morning,
evening.
Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Slater,
Good
Mayor Pro
evening.
Tem Baker, and council members. It's a pleasure to be in front of you this evening. We have been working, Sue Reister with the City Clerk's Office, Lieutenant Josh Jones with the Police Department, as well as myself with the City Attorney's Office on making revisions of Chapter 24, which is our solicitation ordinance. Majority of the revisions were done to make sure that we're in compliance with the First Amendment as the law changes, but we have prepared a short presentation to outline some of the bigger changes. So, go ahead. The first one of the bigger changes we did is, as you can see on this slide, we removed religious, patriotic, and civic from the definition of solicit or solicitation. And the reason for this is because those types of speech are granted broader First Amendment protections that we don't really have the ability to regulate. And so we wanted to make that clear. And so as you can see in the red line here, we removed them and indicated that they're not included in the definition. Next, within the past year or so, in 2017, there was a law passed that allowed for charitable organizations to donate in the streets, obviously not on limited access highways, but in the streets, such as the Good Fellows or other charitable organizations. And so our ordinance as written did not allow for that, so we wanted to clarify that as long as they're in compliance with state law, we're not going to be pursuing prosecution against them. And finally, the third legal change that we made was to clarify the proceeds that are collected from solicitations. We are going to require that whoever has the permit and does the soliciting turn over all of the proceeds to the charitable organization, and then the organization can then distribute those however they deem to be fit, obviously in compliance with state and federal law. But we want to make sure that the person soliciting isn't pocketing the money and that it's in the books for the charity, so that way they are, there's no fraud, essentially, is what we're trying to protect fraud from going on. I think Lieutenant Jones will be able to explain the next changes.
Thank you.
Obviously, when the City of Troy and the Clerk's Office and the City Attorney's Office and the Police Department issue permits for people to go around and contact our resident solicitors or peddlers, it's important that we're giving these permits to people that have a background check done and don't have violent felonies, fraud convictions, any type of crime that is identified as a danger to our residents, because the City of Troy is giving them a permit to go and contact them. So the Police Department is taking responsibility, and has in the past, of vetting these individuals and making sure they don't have any of these convictions on the record prior to issuing them a permit. Additionally, after somebody is given a permit, if the Clerk's Office or the Police Department gets complaints, and we issue and take enforcement action on these peddlers, if they're violating the do not knock list or something like that, those tickets or citations can be used against them in future permits or action. So if they seek to get a permit the following year to solicit or peddle their merchandise, then the Clerk's Office can deny them just on those past violations. And there you go.
Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Basically, when I get an application, it goes to the police department for a background check. If that doesn't pass, then they are allowed to appeal to the manager's office, and they have 14 days to do that. And if they have gotten a permit and they violate any of our ordinances, we can suspend them And the same thing, they have a 14-day appeal process, and the final decision would be the city manager if they decide that they violated it and they can't go on any longer. So, yeah. And coming up this next year is our 5-year anniversary of our Do Not Knock registry, which we give the addresses to our solicitors so they know not to go to these doors. And for a long time, the residents have been asking for some sort of sticker or something to put on their door so they would be known that they're on this list. So our city clerk and our Stephanie made up a really cute little Do Not Knock, and it's a cling, so it doesn't really stick to the window and stay there forever. They can remove it if they move, you know. And we're going to do, in April, we're going to have a kickoff for this, and people can sign up for the Do Not Knock registry on our website. We're going to have some media coverage for it on newspaper, our website. And you can pick up the stickers at City Hall, Police Department, Community Center, and the library.
And then finally, there were a couple housekeeping revisions, punctuation, grammar, and things like that, just to make sure that the ordinance read well and it was organized well. So that being said, we will take any questions if there are any from council at this time.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you. Thank you for a good presentation, all of you. My questions are, and I'm not sure you can answer them, I just realized that, but I'm going to ask them anyway. I'm curious about the amount of permits that are issued or people asked. I mean, are peddlers or solicitors doing the proper thing? Are they requesting their permits? And that's two-part. And as of now, how many people are getting prosecuted or being cited or given citations for not getting a proper permit?
Do you want to answer the first part of how many? Or?
And I'm not looking for exact numbers. I'm just curious, is it, because during campaign season, you hear a lot from people on their doors about things.
Exempt, though.
Right, we're exempt when we're campaigning, but people complain to you when you're there about, well, they're always coming to our neighborhood. I'm just curious, are there a lot of permits issued?
There are a lot of permits, yes. There are a lot that go out, and there are a lot that don't come to the doors, or come to our door. And we encourage the residents to call the police if they're being, if they're on the list and they're coming to the door. They shouldn't, because they get a list of all the addresses that they should not visit. So we do get quite a few. Like in March, we'll start getting like the lawn fertilizer people, and there's plenty of those, a lot of those, and the home improvement. So right now, there's not too many because of the season. But come spring and summer.
Yeah, I would say it's not uncommon in the spring and summer for the police department to respond to solicitor complaints on a daily basis. I would say the majority of those complaints are people that don't have permits, but there are some that come from complaints that people do have permits, and when we find them, if they have a permit, obviously, as long as they're not violating the do not knock list, then there's not a lot that we can do if they have a permit. Ones that do not have a permit and we come in contact with, we do issue citations for solicitation without permit.
Is there any method in place for an entire subdivision or HOA to prohibit all knocking in their neighborhood other than having everybody in that house register?
Yes. Each individual person would need to register for that house. And the reason is we kind of got a challenge on this too, is because people move, or some people may actually want this kind of contact depending on what it is. So we leave it to each individual person, especially because we're dealing with the First Amendment and the protections of the First Amendment. And so we want to be as fair as we can with our do not knock policy and allow people the opportunity to speak if they want, if residents want to hear them. So it would have to be on an individual basis.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions from council? I know we've had some time to take a look at the changes, so we've had an opportunity to contact staff if there was questions. So good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll return it to the table for resolution. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
I'd like to move I-4, Chapter 74, Solicitations Ordinance Revisions as printed.
Support. Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilman Hamilton that we approve I-4, which is the Chapter 74 Solicitations Ordinance revisions, as printed in the agenda packet. Further discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion passes. I-5 is the golf course contract, and City Manager Miller will introduce this item. Good evening, Mark.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. First, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the large team that worked on this project. Christine Kallick, Mary Beth Mertz, Kurt Bovenseep, Lori Bloom, Tom Darling, Elaine Bowe. And I think I remembered everybody. I just had a small portion in it, and I drew the short stick to make this presentation. I think all of us in this room can agree that we have developed a good relationship with Billy Casper Golf. And it's really important in this contract that we do have this trust, because they were actually responsible for expending city funds. It's a very unique type of contract. Because of transparency, even though we were very satisfied, we decided to go for an RFP. I want to backtrack a little bit. The initial contract was June of 2010, and there were extensions in 2014 and 2018 to get us to the end of this calendar year. So we conducted this RFP process, and I believe we had 2 bidders, and then on September 24th, City Council authorized City Administration to negotiate a contract, and we did work on that over the past couple months. And how this contract works is that there is a $12,500 management fee that covers the cost of managing both golf courses. And then to try to encourage or provide an incentive to Billy Casper, there is a incentive management fee. And this incentive management fee is unique in that if the net operating income is not in excess of $500,000, they would not qualify for it. However, if the incentive management fee is 20% of gross revenue of over $2.8 million, that was slightly raised, and it will continue to raise the rate of CPI. However, the incentive is capped, is that it shall not exceed 20% of the gross revenue in that fiscal year. If the net operating income threshold is not met, there are no increases in the base management fees or incentives. As I stated a little bit earlier, the gross revenue threshold is $2.8 million, and this will be adjusted by $30,000 a year. However, there is a penalty, possibly, which was $500,000, is being reduced to $295,000. That is that Billy Casper is responsible to ensure that this city receives at least this $295,000 in a year. And then that is adjusted by CPI. If the NOI is less than the performance threshold of $295,000, we have the right then to terminate the contract. And finally, Billy Casper Golf will utilize city-owned computers, equipment, and 1 truck. So in the end, that we are recommending approval of golf course management agreement with Billy Casper Golf, LLC of Vienna, Virginia, for a 5-year term and 2 5-year renewal options. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Miller from Council? Thank you. Return it to the table for resolution. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
I'd like to move I-5 golf course contract as printed.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilwoman Abraham that we approve I-5, which is the golf course contract, as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion further? Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
I'd just like to say, Billy Casper, there we go. Billy Casper does a great job. I know Aaron's here this evening, and we just want to thank you for the good work that your company has done for our city assets, and we have a good partnership with you, and I'm looking forward to at least 5 more years here. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Any comments from council? I just want to echo that. It's been a great relationship since 2010, and it's gone very well. I know that. Golf course looks the best it's ever looked, too. So, thanks again. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thanks again to everyone who worked on this. I know it's not an easy task. I know that. And thanks to Billy Casper. Aaron, please pass along all that. Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. Anyone wish to pull a consent agenda item this evening? Councilman Pennington?
I'd like to pull J4.
J4 is A and B. Would that be J4A?
Oh, I'm sorry, A.
A, J4A. Any other? Anyone else wish to pull a consent agenda item? Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to pull J8.
Any other items from council? Somebody like to move the resolution? Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
I'd like to move
All items on the consent agenda.
all items on the consent agenda except for J4A and J8, which will be discussed after approval of the consent agenda.
Support.
Thank you. Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilwoman Abraham that we approve all items on the consent agenda as presented with the exception of J4A, J8, which will be considered after the consent agenda items. Discussion? I have a discussion on J4B, which is the forensic. Just a comment, it's a lot of money that's going to be expended for this. I think we all feel that this is necessary, but it's, in my opinion, very unfortunate that it's going to cost the city this kind of money to do this. I did have a discussion earlier today with staff. I'm not excited the way that this progressed to this point. I do understand it's necessary, but it started off as an issue that was going to cost less than $10,000 when it was first discussed, and then after looking at it, $50,000 is a lot of money that we have to spend for something like this. Especially in my opinion, and I'm going to vote for this because I think it needs to be done. But I'm not too happy with the cost, quite honestly, but I understand. But there are some things that happened in the past 5 years, and my understanding is that this review or this audit is going to go back 5 years, and I believe that's correct, right?
Yes.
In my opinion, there was an investigation done up to a couple of years ago. So, having been part of this organization for 40-some years, I'm well aware that there are very, very good checks and balances in this city. I think this is going to be another instance where you're going to find out that the work that's done behind the scenes by the people that work here follow procedure, follow policy, and I just want to emphasize that there are very strong checks and balances here in the city of Troy. And I think the outcome from this audit is going to reveal that. I'm very confident that that's going to happen. So, having said that, I am going to support this because I think it is necessary so that we can all move forward. Any other discussion on the items? Councilman Pennington.
Mayor, not being part of that conversation this afternoon, could we have just a quick explanation of why it went from $10,000 to $50,000. And, obviously it's, looking at the Kishnick, regime there. But I'm just curious why that bump?
Well, I can explain the part that's bothered me a little bit, and that is that when it was first presented to City Council, we were told that there was going to be an audit. We weren't asked if there was going to be an audit. We were told there was going to be audit, and the reason that we weren't told about it is because it was going to fall below the $10,000 threshold, which didn't have to come to City Council. And then, unfortunately, staff found out that it was going to cost significantly more than $10,000. And at that point, City Council was then asked, should we continue this? And in my opinion, it kind of put City Council in an awkward position, because certainly you don't want to say no at that point. So I just think Council should have been involved in it early on, and that was my only point. And I've explained that, and I think staff understands where I was coming from. Any other discussion on the items, these particular items? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Those particular items passed. Now we will discuss J4A, and I will defer to Councilman Pennington.
Thank you, Mayor. J4A is the award standard purchasing resolution for the best value towing and storage services for the police department and the DPW to A&M Service Center. I've known the guys from A&M, and I've dealt with them for probably 30 years. They save the city a lot of money in services that no one really ever sees or knows about. I know about these charges because I get charged from other towing companies that from out of the area, mostly south of 8 Mile, that charge inexorbitant fees for towing. And when these insurance companies get these tow bills, they're shocked. It's just part of that industry where some towing companies, for lack of a better word, rip people off on a daily basis. A&M Towing is the opposite. They provide not only the best service around, they're very reasonable. And so they save the city a lot of money, and I want to thank those guys for everything they've done for the city for years. So when I get bills from them for my insurance companies, they're actually surprised on the other side. They say, "Oh, we got a towing bill, tow bill for $60." It's like, that's what they charge me. So I want to say shout out to them and appreciation for all they've done for the city and for me over the years.
Thank you. I can echo that, and I think if we have asked the chiefs to come forward and talk about A&M, I think they would support that wholeheartedly. They've done a great job for the city. Did you want to move that particular item?
Yes, I'd like to move J4A, the award for standing purchasing resolution 8, best value award, towing and storage services, police department, as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Pennington and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Baker that we approve J4A as printed in the agenda packet. Further discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is a discussion for J8, and I will defer to Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to ask the city attorney real quick on a closed session of this nature, with everything else being out in the open, all the interviews, the hiring process, everybody saw every inch of this this process. Why would we go into a closed session to talk about the city attorney's contract? or
City
manager's
contract. You are allowed to go into a closed session to get advice from your attorney, and in this case, you have directed that it be outside counsel. So Tom McGraw is the one who is negotiating the contract with the city manager, and it provides you an opportunity to have a very candid discussion with what is permissible, what's legally allowable in terms of a contract. Absolutely, the contract would be discussed and voted on in a public session, but that's an opportunity for you to ask the attorney candid questions about what legally is permissible and not permissible. So that's all it's intended for, is to discuss with the attorney the various provisions that might be asked for or that might be different than what is in the contract currently.
So the follow-up question to that is, then I'm assuming that the contract is complete, as complete as it can be at this stage. And is there still negotiating that is going to take place after this closed session?
I believe so, yes. I believe that, again, it is an opportunity for the attorney to give you legal advice in a closed session environment so that he can be candid as well. And then, again, I don't think that the contract is done. I think that he wants to bring it to your attention to talk with you about different options and then present a version of a contract that is agreed to by Mr. Miller to be discussed and voted on at an open session in a subsequent meeting.
Any other questions, comments on J8? So I think it's been pretty clear from this table that it's going to take extenuating circumstances to go into closed session with this council. And I think I've made it clear that there are probably only a couple of instances where I will go into closed session. And one of those would be in contract negotiations with bargaining units and potentially the city attorney and the city manager. But I would look at it as this is negotiations, and we are only going to be talking with the attorney in this meeting, no one else. Any other questions? Comments? Councilman Henderson, did you want to move this resolution?
Yeah. One last question. So to your last comment then. So our closed session would be with just the attorney and city council, not Attorney Bloom, not Mr. Miller.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
That's my understanding. And after that conversation, we will not be coming back to council that night for a contract.
Correct.
The negotiations will continue after that.
Exactly. The attorney is going to need to meet with you, talk about different options, and then should be presented at the next council meeting, the next regular council meeting.
Which will be public.
Correct.
I'd like to move J8, request for closed session for the purpose of discussing the city manager employment agreement.
Support.
Or
By Councilman Henderson, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Baker, that we approve J8, which is the request for closed session for the purpose of discussing the city manager employment agreement as printed in the agenda packet. Any further discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Motion passes. There are no memorandums in future council agenda items this evening. I don't see that anyone has signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. There are no council referrals this evening, so next is council comments. Any comments from council? Councilman Henderson.
since this is our last meeting before Christmas, I just want to wish everybody in the city Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and have a great start to the new year.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Hoderick.
I've been reflecting on Ms. Landmesser's comments earlier as the meeting has progressed, and I understand your concerns about the cluster option. I wanted to reflect for a second on why that has even become an option in the city. Property owners and developers have the ability to build by right, and when they do that, that doesn't even come to City Council. So the cluster options all have to come here. In some instances, it's going to make sense in a neighborhood, and in some, it's not. There are trade-offs that a cluster option allows for in a particular area. Sometimes an adjacent neighbor is very desirous of the buffer that a cluster option allows. In some cases, that may not be the priority of the adjacent neighborhood, but the fact that we have the option in and of itself, I'm concerned about creating a drumbeat that it's a negative that we have that option. Because in fact, it took a lot of work and was the result of our residents pushing our planning commission and our planning department for that kind of an option to create buffers in certain areas. That cluster option in the tree ordinance grew out of frustration that some neighbors had in neighborhoods where the developer came in, clear-cut the trees, built houses, big houses, footprinted right up to their older neighborhood. And in that case, they would have maybe liked cluster option. It gives us a chance to A/B it. A developer doesn't even have to pursue that. But because we developed an option, it gives us a chance to have that kind of a dialogue, which I believe is a positive for us as a community. There may be a perception that we can stop development if we get rid of cluster options. That's my concern, is that I'm hearing, oh, if the cluster option isn't there, we can stop this development in these green space areas. That's just not the case. And in fact, Lansing right now, through the lame duck, may pass a law that makes it very difficult for us to even have our tree ordinance. I'm not sure what it would do to our cluster option. So our ability to have local control and local options is something that I'm cherishing right now as I watch Lansing potentially remove it from us. And so I appreciate your comments, and I am hearing you. I guess I want to be heard too in terms of creating a sense that we should get rid of the cluster option here locally. You have some neighbors in other corners of the city who would say, no, we wish we had had that option next to our neighborhood. So with your neighborhood in particular, and the one, now I don't remember all the specifics from back in May about that particular, but I know I had researched that very carefully in my own mind about what I felt was the right thing to do. We look at that very, very carefully and listen to the neighbors, and I hope we'll continue to have that dialogue and look at the two options, look at the trade-offs. We want to work with you to manage through them in your neighborhood and in any other neighbors. When I say we, I shouldn't speak for all of council, but I think we all believe that. We want to do right by you, by the developer, by our city. It is hard to watch green space disappear, but property owners have property rights. How do we help manage and mitigate the impact is our challenge, and our planning commission has worked very hard on that, the planning department. We take it very seriously, and we hear you. We're going to continue to listen to you, and we appreciate your involvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you. I think I'll start with the Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. As Councilman Henderson said, it's hard to believe it's the last meeting of the year already, and we're at that point. But Merry Christmas to all of you as well. I hope you have a good holiday. To Ms. Landmesser, and to follow up on Councilmember Hoderick a little bit, there's not much to say after that, but it's interesting to hear what we've started to hear a little bit. When we first did the cluster ordinance, people were I felt pleased when one of those issues came up. But the past couple, there's been comments similar to what you said tonight, of I'd almost rather lose the trees and have the houses stay more comparable to what our neighborhoods are. And I think it was the May cluster that some in the audience had said that night as well. We'd rather have them build by right because it would look more like our neighborhood. I'm not sure it was that specific one, but I do remember thinking that. And I think that's good insight and good feedback from the community for us to listen to, and think it is difficult for us to look at all of these options and decide. I mean, we don't live in these neighborhoods, and we understand there's going to be, that is it, right? We don't live in the neighborhoods. That said, the policy, as we believed at the time of the cluster ordinance, was that the community would be better served by having greener buffers and more trees, because people were more upset with having a large house built right up to their property line without the trees that they were used to for the 30, 40 years prior. I still think we need to, as a city, be continually looking at our cluster option, what we can do with the developers and the neighborhood associations to have better communication and better understanding regarding these issues, because I think a lot of these things can at least be worked out and talked about early on. I think it was Miss Bossenberger? Marcia. It was Marcia. I know you, sorry, I had said before, you didn't learn about certain things until it was almost too late, or you felt it was too late. We have to work on that and make sure the community is feeling heard and understood. I appreciate that you're coming meeting after meeting and talking about this. I expect you to continue to come, especially as things move forward with the Ottawa development, but I think it's just good for all of us to think about what we can do, if there is anything we can do, while balancing property rights of property owners and the feel of a neighborhood where you've lived for half your life or more, right? I understand that. So we'll continue, and thank you for that. To shift gears for a second, I also want to talk about the success of the tree lighting in the Winter Wonderland this past week, or 10 days ago, I guess, or so, at the out front side of City Hall and the library and the community center. I was at the Troy Chamber Holiday Luncheon, and people were talking about it. Councilmember Hoderick was there as well. We were talking, and it was really wonderful to hear I see Elaine's back there, so thank you for what you did, but to hear all the different people that came out to that event, and the different, what am I trying to say? The diverse group of people there, and I don't mean diversity in one respect, I mean in all respects. It really, children of all ages, adults of all ages were there enjoying themselves, spending a lot of time, and it was really wonderful to hear about something in our city that's bringing people together and getting people onto our Civic Center campus and using the buildings and feeling a sense of community. So thank you for all those who made that happen, and I think that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Pennington?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on some of those comments. Merry Christmas, whatever religion you are, and mostly wish everybody a Happy New Year and hopefully a quieter New Year for the city of Troy, especially in the media and, of course, for the police department and for all of our citizens.
Thank you. Councilwoman Abraham?
Like Mayor Pro Tem Baker said, it's hard to believe this is the last meeting of the year. So it's been a tough 2018, I think, for the entire city and certainly for a number of us on council. So I would like to extend Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to our community. Celebrate the joys of the year, even if you had a tough year. There's always reasons to celebrate. I want to remind folks to celebrate safely, particularly on New Year's Eve. You don't want to end your year on a very bad note, either with an injury to yourself or causing injury to others. Call a cab, call a Lyft, call an Uber. Don't let your celebration end tragically for yourself or for your family. And as you're celebrating, make sure you watch out for your friends and neighbors who may not be as joyous. As we know, this time of year can be a very difficult month. If you see anyone struggling, a friend, a neighbor, even a casual acquaintance, I know Councilman Henderson has mentioned many times, during National Suicide Prevention Month, that you always have to watch out. And if you suspect anything, there's help that you can get online or in person, and we have to be on the watch for those that may struggle and help them through what for us might be a joyous time and not so joyous for others. So don't want to end on sadness, because There is plenty of good in the world, but we just always have to be mindful of our neighbors. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on council wish to comment this evening? Councilman Hamilton?
Just a quick Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone.
You done? Did you want to say anything?
No, I'm good.
I just want to, this was brought to my attention, so I just, council, if you could take a look at your calendars for the next meeting. We have a budget study session scheduled for April the 17th, and that is the night of the Troy Youth Assistance Youth Recognition Awards program, and I know many on council go to that, and I usually speak at that event. So if council could just look at possibly moving that to Thursday, April the 18th, and maybe get back to us next council, or possibly Mr. Miller, you could just send an email to council and see if that works for everybody, and maybe take a look at changing that date. They're remembered tonight, Cindy.
Just a quick one.
Councilman Hamilton.
Are those typically at 6 or 7 or 7:30, those budget meetings?
6.
6, okay. Should be good.
If there's a problem, we can look for another night too.
Should be okay.
And seeing as I get the last comment usually, certainly I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everyone. I know a lot of people think 2018 was a tough year, and but you know, when you look around the city, 2018 was really a really good year also in the city of Troy. And I just look forward to 2019 because it's going to be much better. Next on the agenda are reports. Anyone wish to speak about a report? Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. There was a late submittal report from Kurt Bovenseat, Public Works Director, regarding the Troy Trail update. And Kurt had spoken with us a couple meetings ago, or a few minutes, don't remember the exact date, about pursuing a Phase 2 route that included looking at the purchase of some property on Belzaire. I guess I want to say thank you for holding this report. If you haven't seen it, it says that there were some formal public engagement sessions with that neighborhood directly. So I thank you, first of all, for doing that. I think that was the first thing we were adamant about having. But I also, for those who didn't know, it looks like the city at this point is changing its course for Phase 2 based on the feedback received from that neighborhood, and we'll be looking at future options and back to the drawing board, I guess. But there are other things in there. But thank you, Kurt, for having the conversations you've had with that neighborhood, and thank you for that neighborhood for the emails we've received and the phone calls. But we're changing course, so no need to send any more. Unless, of course, you want to. But
any other comments regarding the reports? I would just like to point out P3A, which is a letter of appreciation to the Troy Fire Department from Woodside student staff. This is such a cool note that I'm going to read this, if I could, with Chief Roberts' permission. Okay. Dear Troy Fire Department, we hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and were able to spend some time with family and friends, and were able to find rest in the midst of a busy season. Before Thanksgiving, we had some of our middle school students take some time to say thank you to you, because we don't believe it is said often enough. So alongside of our students and on behalf of our student ministry staff at Woodside Bible Church, we would like to say a big thank you for everything you do and continue to do for the communities you serve. In Christ, Woodside student staff. And I think it's just really, really nice that they reached out to say that. And Chief Nastasi will always say the fire department gets all of the the happy news, and we get the hate letters. So, no, I don't see that anyone has signed up for comments on items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy. So, there is no closed session this evening, so thank you for coming once again. Merry Christmas, and everyone I hope has a great New Year. Thank you. We're adjourned.